Coming up next, this singer was riding high in the 70s as his band had just opened for one of the biggest bands in the world. And after years of hard work and ultra tenacity, they were finally going to break out. Then his world came crashing down when a car wreck destroyed all of their instruments and equipment, and their label wouldn't front them the money to get new stuff, so they had to cancel all their remaining dates and they were dropped from the label. The singer was horrified, thought his career was over. Then he got a phone call that changed his life. Coming up next, the song that became the opening shot for a band that became one of the biggest ever. Many think it's a sex song, but it actually means something totally different. Got an interview with the singer. It's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies. Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember the nice price on tapes and vinyl back in the day, you're going to appreciate this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the big red button and click the bell so you always know if stuff comes out. Also, check us out on Patreon. So I'm excited to return to another one of my favorite shows that we do on this channel. It's called Breakthrough. In this show, we break down songs, albums, or events that kicked open the door to an artist or band's career and gave them the momentum to rocket to long-term success. Sometimes you have to go through literal hell before you can get to the other side or to heaven. That's what happened to singer Lou Gramm, who ruled the late 70s and 80s as the lead singer of the stadium rock giant, the band Foreigner. Lou was ready to go big time with his band Black Sheep, but when tragedy struck, it ripped his rock and roll dreams away from him. When he thought it was all over, he got a serendipitous call that would change his life. It was Mick Jones. He wanted him to come audition for his new band Foreigner. Over 50 singers auditioned for the singer position, but actually Lou declined. Coming up next, an exclusive interview with Lou Gramm where he tells a miraculous story about this as well as Foreigner's breakthrough hit, the classic rock standard Feels Like the First Time. Most people think that Feels Like the First Time is all about sex, but in reality, co-writer Mick Jones told me that the song was written about a bit of a change in his life. Mick said he was coming out of a previous marriage with somebody he'd met in France. He'd just gone back to England and then finally came over to America while he was in the band Spooky Tooth. And for Mick, it was a challenge of, starting a new life. And it really came out of the blue is what he said. To Mick, the song was signifying a brand new start. He'd met somebody, he got remarried and moved with her to America, and that was the song that described this experience. It was also a new start, new band where he was in control of his destiny, including calling the shots. He was, now the primary member, and this song, Feels Like the First Time, was a synthesis of that fresh start. But Lou Gramm, he co-wrote a little bit of the song. We'll find out how that happened. I would climb any mountain. Actually, this song was one of 4 songs that were on a demo tape that got Foreigner their record deal. So let's get into it. As we do, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I always wear. The coolest frames that Zenni has right now are their blue light glasses with multicolored lenses. A first-of-its-kind innovation. Blocks plus Tints technology blocks more blue light than ever, filtering digital screen glare and UV light with 8 different tinted lenses to choose from. Just click on our info button to get the best deal and to get yours today. We also have a link below. Here's Lou Gramm with the story of Feels Like the First Time. Well, I want to go into Feels Like the First Time. It went to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was that first song that just punched people in the face with Foreigner as one of the great songs. Feels like the first time. Let's go to that time. You were in Black Sheep. You had this car wreck where you lost all your equipment, one of your lowest points in your career. Take us to that time.
Well, we had just played the Boston Academy of Music opening for Kiss. First show on the Kiss tour. We had the whole tour opening for them. We got a standing ovation. We went back and played one more song. And then we came off stage, we cleaned up and went out in the audience to listen to Kiss. And they were awesome. Meanwhile, our crew guys were starting to tear down our equipment. And so about 2/3 of the way through the Kiss show, we took off because it was Christmas Eve. We had a long ride back to Rochester. I got back to Rochester about four in the morning. I wasn't in bed over an hour when I got a call, and he said that they had hit a patch of ice on the New York State Thruway. The truck had slid off and tipped over on its side. The other two guys and he were okay. That a wrecker came and flatbedded it to a little town and parked it on the side of a gas station. Early the day after Christmas, it really was a mess in there. The Hammond B3 had the legs torn off it. The drums were not round anymore; they were oblong. We finally estimated that about 90% of the equipment was destroyed, unusable. And 2 days from the day after Christmas, we had another show. Didn't know what to do. We need to call our record company. We just finished a new album that was just released. We're out touring to support the album. That makes them money. Why can't they help us get back on our feet so we can do the whole tour? Went through the proper channels and asked the right people if that was a possibility, and they said they were going to talk about it and call us back. And they did call us back. They not only said it wasn't possible, but they dropped us from the label.
Oh, jeez.
And we were done as a band. We were done. We would meet about once every two weeks or 3 weeks. We were going to, we all had part-time jobs and stuff. We were going to try and get some small equipment, used small equipment, and at least play some clubs around Rochester. But that wasn't happening either. And it was just about that time that while I was at one of those meetings with the guys in Black Sheep, my dad called me. And he said some guy named Mick Jones had just called. He had an English accent. And he wanted to talk to you, and he asking for you to call him back. The Spooky Tooth played the Auditorium Theater in Rochester. And Black Sheep manager was an A&M Records rep. So he got us into the show, to hear the show, and it was a very good show. They were a good band. And after the show, we got backstage to meet them. And I had the two Black Sheep Capitol Records albums with me, and I gave them to Mick, and I says, here's what we do. Give it a listen. I hope you enjoy it. So when he called me, he had heard those albums and liked the way I sang, and asked me if I would consider coming to New York and auditioning for this new band he was putting together. I thanked him. I told him that was a real decent offer, and under most circumstances, I would be down there right away. I told him what happened to us. He sounded like he felt bad about it, and I told him that I had to see if there was any hope left of continuing, or if that was the end of Black Sheep. And he said, "Well," he says, "sounds like you got some thinking to do." He says, "I'll call you back in about 3 weeks and see if anything's changed." So the next time I met with the guys in Black Sheep, I told them that Mick Jones had called and wanted me to come and audition for his new band. And they said, "Well, what did you say?" I said, "I told him, no, I'm in a band already." And they said, "What are you, crazy? We're just a bunch of guys now. We're not really a band anymore. Call him back and take that offer to go audition." I would climb any mountain. So I did go to New York, and I was picked up at the airport, and Mick was there, Ian McDonald was there, Al Greenwood was there. They had recorded Feels Like the First Time already, and a couple of other songs. So they played the song. They played the instrumental version for me while I was in the control room, and Mick was singing in my ear the melody. We got to the point where I went out into the studio and began singing. Sail across the stormy sea. It took a few times to get comfortable with a new song you had never done before, but pretty soon I was I was in the swing of things, and I was cutting loose a little bit, you know, and they were very pleased with that. At the end of that kind of audition session, Mick asked me to come to dinner to his house, and his wife cooked us a great meal. And then right after the meal, we went over to a little corner of his apartment that was where he had his small amplifier and a keyboard and his guitar there, stuff, a drum machine. We started working on the song that became Long, Long Way From Home. I was longing for home. And we accomplished quite a bit on that song in about 2 or 3 hours. And so the next day he asked me to come by again in the late morning, and we worked the whole day on that day too. We finished Long, Long Way From Home. We're starting to work on a couple other things. Our manager, Bud Prager, had the penthouse suite in a 15 or 20 story building in Manhattan, which is considered a small building, you know? Yeah. So he had offices all the way around the floor, and the center area was where he had some storage, and that's where the band was set up. That was the first time I got to hear how the band sounded. The rehearsals went really well. We started to write more material and learn the material and start to play it. Together we'll make history. We had a 2-track tape machine, and we recorded some of the rehearsals. And then we started sending the tapes out to the various record companies to see if we could garner interest. And sure enough, there was about 5 of them that made appointments to come and hear us in that room live. You know, they liked the tapes. They wanted to hear what we sounded like. We played the songs live. They all said that they were impressed and pleased, and they would get back to us. Nobody got back to us. Nobody got back to us. Even Atlantic Records came there with Jerry Greenberg was the president of Atlantic at the time, and John Kolodner was head of A&R. After they left, John doubled back and came up to see us again. He said, I'm saying this with all the respect in the world. He says, singles on pop radio, they don't go much longer than 3 minutes long. He says, all the songs we heard on the tape and we heard yesterday when the execs were there, were all averaged about 6.5 minutes long. He says, that's why I think labels weren't interested, you know, and you didn't get any return response. He says, and I think that's kind of what happened with Jerry Greenberg and the Atlantic guys. He says, let's take these songs and trim them down, not cut any of the good parts out, just the 3-minute guitar solos. Let's bring them down to 45 seconds, and the the verses, trim them down a little bit and make them go into the choruses earlier, you know. And so we worked on that for about 4 or 5 days, and then Atlantic Records came back again, and we played them the edited, the trimmed down way. When we were finished, Jerry Greenberg had contracts in his briefcase, and he broke them out. And of course, we wanted our attorney and our manager to look at them, but that was a show of good faith, you know. And we did get signed to Atlantic. We were recording within weeks. We were in the Atlantic Records studios on Columbus Circle. As we were going into studios, Aretha Franklin was just leaving. So that was kind of a good sign.
So it really hit you what was going on there.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, well, and you call it Foreigner because you had members from both sides of the Atlantic.
That's correct, yes. Oh, that was better than what it was going to be called, Trigger. No, I didn't know if Mick was meaning trigger on a gun or trigger the horse, you know?
Right. He tried out 50 different singers, auditioned 50 different singers, but he always knew from interviews I've seen that you were the one. And it feels like the first time, even though it was written, you actually did change some of the lyrics. You had input on it because it's kind of like, as an American, like an actor, you had the way that you would sing it.
Yes, that's right.
And that was such a great single to start with because
Really was.
it just showed the power of Foreigner, that you guys were radio friendly, but you rocked, you know. You were a band that not to be trifled with as far as rock and roll goes. So Jukebox Hero, this song, just music history's ultimate rock song for me. It's so much bigger than its chart position. It went to number 26 on the charts, but this was a song that, you know, if they played it on a morning radio, it was going to wake you up. It's just such an incredible song. I know that you're really proud of this one. Came from your own experience. That's why I think the vocal has so much power. It's because we've all, as rock and roll fans, been there where we want to get to that show. We want to go to the sold out show and we're kind of on the outside looking in. And you had that experience. Tell me about writing Jukebox Hero and that experience.
Well, it was based on an experience that I had in Rochester when I was about 14 or 15 years old. And Jimi Hendrix was playing at the Rochester War Memorial. And I wanted to see him in that show very badly, and didn't have a ticket and didn't have money, and didn't have the okay from my mom and dad to go down there at all, you know. And I'd already had one experience hitchhiking to the War Memorial to see the Stones in 1965. And so there I was again about a year and a half later.
Didn't you take off when the Rolling Stones, you were going to go to the Rolling Stones, and your parents were like, get back here, right?
Oh, yeah. I was, right after I asked my parents if I could see them, and they said no. And I excused myself from the dinner table, went upstairs, got ready. And at some point, I just ran down the stairs and ran out the door and ran down the street. And when I was approaching the end of the street, I heard way off in the distance, "Louis, I'm gonna kill you."
Your dad.
Yeah, and I started laughing, a little hysterically, you know, because I know he would kill me. You know?
Yeah.
But it was too late. I was already taking the risk. So this was kind of the same thing again. This time,
and then later you opened for the Rolling Stones. That's what was cool.
Yes, isn't that something?
Yeah, that's amazing. It came all the way back around. You probably noticed that Foreigner just got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Congratulations to them. I'm just pumped. They finished second in the fan vote, and that's very much due to all of your support in this community. It's actually estimated that almost 50,000 people went over to vote for Foreigner from our previous videos on this channel. Congratulations on your passion. You helped make it happen. So leave us a comment about this song, Feels Like the First Time. What a opening shot for this band. So grateful that they're in the Hall of Fame. Let's talk about that below. Mick and Lou back together again. Let's have a great discussion. If you like our content, we do invite you to subscribe below. We would love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.